country. But in weighing up the decision as to the sentence which is to be imposed for such an offense, the court must take into account the question of responsibility. Whether it is I who am responsible, or whether, in fact, a large measure of the responsibility does not lie on the shoulders of the government which promulgated that law, knowing that my people, who constitute the majority of the population of this country, were opposed to that law. And knowing further that every legal means of demonstrating that opposition has been closed to them by prior legislation and by government administrative actions. Perhaps the court will say that despite our human rights to protest, to object, to make ourselves heard, we should stay within the letter of the law. I would say, sir, that it is the government, its administration of the law, which brings the law into such contempt and disrepute that one is no longer concerned in this country to stay within the letter of the law. I will illustrate this from my own experience. The government has used the process of law to handicap me in my personal life, in my career, and in my political work in a way which is calculated, in my opinion, to bring about a contempt for the law. In December 1952, I was issued with an order by the government, not as a result of a trial before the magisterial district of Johannesburg for 6 months, and at the same time, I was prohibited from attending gatherings for a similar period. That order expired in June 1953, and 3 months thereafter, again, without any hearing, without any attempt to hear my side of the case, without facing me with charges or explanations, both bans were renewed for a further period of 2 years. These bans, a third was added. I was ordered by the Minister of Justice to resign altogether from the African National Congress and never again to become a member or to participate in its activities. Towards the end of 1955, I found myself free and able to move around once again, but not for long. February 1956, the bans were again renewed, administratively again without hearing, this time for 5 years. Again, by order of the government, in the name of the law, I found myself restricted and isolated from my fellow men, from people who think like me and believe like me. I found myself trailed by officers of the security branch of the police force wherever I went. In short, I found myself treated as a criminal, an unconvicted criminal. I was not allowed to pick my company, to frequent the company of men, to participate in their political activities, to join their organizations. I was not free from constant police surveillance. I was made, by the law, a criminal, not because of what I had done, but because of what I stood for, because of what I thought, because of my conscience. Can it be any wonder to anybody that such conditions makes a man an outlaw of society? Can it be wondered that such a man, having been outlawed by the government, should be prepared to lead the life of an outlaw as I have led for some months, according to the evidence before this court? It has not been easy for me during this past period to separate myself from my wife and children, to say goodbye to the good old days when, at the end of a strenuous day and in office, I could look forward to joining my family at the dinner table, and instead to take up the life of a man hunted continuously by the police, living separated from those who are closest to me in my own country, facing continually the hazards of detection and of arrest. This has been a life infinitely more difficult than serving a prison sentence. No man in his right senses would voluntarily choose such a life in preference to the one of normal family and social life which exists in every civilized community. But there comes a time, as it came in my life, when a man is denied the right to live a normal life, and he can only live the life of an outlaw because the government has so decreed to use the law to impose a state of outlawry against him. I was driven to this situation, and I do not regret having to take the decision that I did take. Other people will be driven in the same way in this country by this very same force of police persecution and of administrative action by the government to follow my course. Of that, I am certain. I do not believe, Your Worship, that this court, in inflicting penalties on me for the crimes for which I am convicted, should be moved by the belief that penalties deter man from the course that they believe is right. History shows that penalties do not deter men when their conscience is aroused, nor will they deter my people or the colleagues with whom I have worked before. Thank you.